Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of MissFlips. If you guys are new here, my name is Marissa and I am saving up $20,000 by the end of the year to put a down payment onto a house. If you guys want to stay tuned on this journey, make sure you like and subscribe and comment and do all those things. I have a lot of behind the scenes footage on social media, so if you guys want to see a little sneak peek of what the video is going to be about or see what I've sold, make sure to follow me here. So today we're going to be taking this dresser and turning it into this dresser. And I got a little treat for you guys on the inside of the dresser, so make sure you watch the whole thing and make sure to stay tuned until the end of the episode where I'm going to make the final reveal of what it looks like on the inside. I did a really cool design. I am actually really proud of it because I didn't use a stencil or anything. And yeah, let's get flipping. So this is our piece here, and the first order of business is to take out all of the drawers and just get it prepped for cleaning so that I can get into every nook and cranny. And then I wanted to give it a once over, looking at everything that I needed to fix. This piece was actually pretty banged up, so there's a lot of scratches that I would be needing to sand out. The hardware on this was definitely broken on one side and a little outdated, so I was going to be replacing it anyway. So I went ahead and took that off just so I could clean it better, and the wood was actually attached to the piece, so I ended up having to go in there with some pliers and just kind of pry off those wood pieces. So I just continued to take off all the hardware of all the drawers. So now we're going to give the piece a good once over with a cloth, and my favorite cleaning solution from Grove is the citrus cleaning concentrate, and it smells so good, and you just put it into water in this reusable glass bottle, and so you're not wasting any plastic. You know, I think about this often when I am cleaning before I sand and wondering why we do that. It seems to me like the sander kicks up enough dust that we would clean afterwards, so I might just start doing that. Unless, of course, you guys have a really cool reason that I don't know, which if you do, please leave it in the comments because I would like to know. Yeah. So we're taking all of the stain off of the drawers just because I'm going to be staining it a completely different color, and then we're going to be patching the holes where the old hardware used to be and letting that dry while I sand off the rest of the piece. I didn't actually have to sand this piece off. I do have sand-free primer, and the paint actually that I'm going to be using doesn't need to be sanded beforehand either. But this piece was so damaged on the side, it had so many deep scratches, so I just wanted to go in there and smooth it out. That way the paint would be nice and smooth after we put it on there. And so now comes repair time. We're going to be using this wood filler to kind of smooth out those dents and all of the pieces where the veneer is kind of coming up. And I just used a metal spatula to kind of smooth out the edges. And also we're going to fill in the holes where the old hardware used to be. After all the wood filler was sanded off, I wanted to test out a couple of colors of stains, and I didn't want to do it on the drawers because I didn't want to have to sand them again. So I knew the sides of the dresser were the same material wood as the drawers, so I just tried it on there where I was going to be painting over anyways. So I tried this espresso color first, and then I tried American Walnut. And I ended up liking the American Walnut a little bit better. I just thought it would go with the color that I was going for more. So then I went ahead and took a corner sander and sanded off the front doors as well as the two drawers that go on the bottom. So this part was actually really frustrating because these pieces actually had like little, I don't know what they were, but they were like little black specks of, I think, what was paint, but it came off like almost like a gluey kind of texture, and it just ate up the sandpaper like crazy. So I ended up having to use about like probably 10 different pieces of sandpaper on just these 4 pieces. So that was pretty frustrating, but once it was done, they were looking fresh and clean, so I went over and sanded them with a 220 grit sandpaper so that the surfaces would be nice and smooth. If you guys were to take anything from this video, please let it be this. If you plan on spraying down your piece before you stain it, make sure you wet down the entire surface before you start staining. Because if you spray it or use, like a spray bottle or a cloth to wipe on your cleaning product, the stain will pick up where you sprayed it first. And so you'll be left with like these little spots. I used a spray bottle, so it kind of went all over the place in little dots. And that's exactly how the stain turned out. So I ended up wiping down all of my surfaces after that with this wood rejuvenator, then putting on the stain, so that way it gets picked up by the whole surface and the wood isn't selective where it's picking up the stain, and you're left with a really nice, solid, smooth finish. And here's our first coat of primer. So for putting on hardware, I got this really cool tool off of Amazon. I'll make sure to link it in the description for you guys, but it was actually the most helpful thing that I possibly could have bought. All you have to do is just measure out the holes where your hardware is going to be, and then put that on the ruler, and then you just screw through the provided holes and you have your hardware set. And it makes sure that it's level with the drawers, and you can adjust it, so you can adjust where it is, like in the middle of the drawer, on top of the drawer, all that sort of stuff. It is so helpful and sped up this process so much. I cannot recommend it enough. So the color paint that I chose from Home Depot by Behr actually ended up not being exactly what I wanted. It ended up kind of looking a little childish, a little juvenile, and I was more so looking for a little bit of a darker green to make it a bit more sophisticated. And so I ended up going with Amsterdam Green by Annie Sloan. It's a chalk paint. So I kind of just used this paint as kind of like a primer. Since it had primer in it already, I figured I might as well use what I had of it since I had a little sample. And yeah, just decided to paint all my doors with it and tape down all the surfaces so the paint wouldn't get on any of the stain. I highly recommend doing this to the whole piece because for me, I was trying to speed up the process with a roller. So you never know when that roller's just gonna get away from you and get into those places where you don't want the paint to get. So once the paint was all said and done, I actually ended up not really liking the color of stain that I chose. So I went in with a little darker of a stain afterwards on top of the stain that I already put. And I decided that I, didn't really want to remove the color. I still wanted that reddish feel. So I left the stain there and just put another coat of a darker stain on top just to make it pop a little bit more and make it a little bit more rich. I hate to admit it, guys, but I actually didn't film any of this taping process. I was just too excited, I couldn't help myself, and I completely forgot to film this part of it. But I made sure to make all of the drawers really tight and close together, that way the pattern would be fluid from drawer to drawer. And then I cut in between so that there wouldn't be any ends that were coming up off of the drawer. That way, no matter where the tape was, the edges would be nice and clean. And initially I thought I was going to be leaving a lot more bare wood, but I actually didn't like that as much, and so I ended up going over it with a roller and just leaving the lines underneath the tape as wood. And my God, can we just talk about for a second how satisfying it is to watch tape being peeled up? I don't know what it is. It's just great. I love it. I can see the light, but I can also see the bones decay. I don't know what else there is to say. And I really wanted this piece to really stand out and be unique, so I wanted to go in there with some gold detailing. So here's a little bit of my process. I made sure to just put down tape where I wanted the shape to be, and really there isn't any rhyme or reason to how I did this. I just kind of went with the flow and did what I thought would look good. And honestly, not all of the pieces I did here were even. There's actually a couple of them that are either thicker or longer than the other. I tried to do it as equally as I could, but honestly, when you're just eyeballing it, it's kind of tough to make it perfect. If I were to give you guys any tips for this process, it would definitely be to make sure that your paint is completely dry before you start doing your second layer of design. And then also to make sure that you put a primer on top of it beforehand. That way it keeps the paint from peeling off. I did this, and even still I had a little bit of places that I had to go and touch up afterwards with the green paint. Another tip would definitely be to make sure that your paint is completely flat. So make sure that none of the edges are coming up. That way you don't have to go in and touch up later. And what is a mid-century flip without the signature mid-century legs? I got some legs off of Amazon, and I looked at the bottom of this piece, and of course it had this trim on there that I had to take up. And I actually ended up using the wood from the trim as the base for my legs. Because originally all it had was like that kind of, you know, bendy, rubbery, thin wood as the liner for the drawer. And it didn't really have anything that I could drill into to secure my legs onto. So I took the wood from the base and just screwed it into the bottom, and yeah, started drilling the holes for the legs.
And your heart makes no sound. I'll find valid in your eyes. You'll always be my night sky.
And now we're getting into my favorite part of the process, which is assembly. I love it when the whole piece is coming together and you're just doing those finishing touches, like putting on the hardware, and it's turning out just the way you like it. It's such a satisfying feeling. So when I put on the doors, I noticed that they were kind of like hitting together, like they weren't shutting properly. So I actually had to go in there and shave off a layer of the right door with my sander, and that way they wouldn't scuff or touch or anything, hit up against each other, and they would just close really smoothly. And I also decided that I was going to do a gold border around the inside of the door because I thought it was pretty and that it would look nice.
No sound.
So after all the paint was dry, I went in there with a primer, and for this primer I'm actually using a semi-gloss because I did want it to have that kind of shiny feel, but not like too glossy, so I went with the semi-gloss just to make it a little bit like, you know, cool.
Inside my thoughts, and when I start to think, oh, the whole close, it starts to end up on the brink. I tried so hard, but all these scars, they cut so deep, I bleed. I fell so fast from heaven, it's like someone clipped my wings. Now I'm falling, and I can't see.
After doing the last final touch-ups on this piece, it was finally ready to be assembled and photographed. For this piece, I actually didn't feel like it needed any staging. I actually just wanted it to be just the dresser, nothing fancy. I thought that it was enough to kind of stand on its own, and so I just assembled it against this brick wall and called that a day. And here's the final product. Alright guys, I am so stoked with how this piece turned out. I think it turned out so cool, so mid-century modern, retro, even giving a little bit of like an Art Deco vibe to it. I loved it. If you guys want to see me do more pieces like this, please let me know in the comments. I would love to do that for you guys. I loved to implement, you know, my artsy side and really get to do something cool and unique for this piece. So without further ado, let's talk numbers. So I got this piece for $88 at Retro Rescue Atlanta, and including all the tools, that all came out to be about $200, including the price of the piece. So it's a little bit more than I would like to spend on a project, but honestly, I was just so excited and I had such a clear vision in my head that I just needed to make it turn out the way that I wanted to. Anyways, I am going to be listing this piece. So we actually just sold the piece. I was in the middle, sitting down, just like editing this video, and we actually sold it. I got someone messaging me to ask if I could deliver it. Sorry, I'm straightening it out here. To ask if I could deliver it to their home, and they paid full price for it. So I listed it on Facebook Marketplace, but this one was actually sold on OfferUp. And I listed it for $625 and got the full price of $625. So we have an all-in budget of roughly around $200, and so all in, we made a profit of $425, which is my biggest profit yet. I am so stoked. I am so happy with this piece. I think it's such a cool, unique piece, and I wouldn't have wanted it to go for anything less because I just really put a lot into it, so it feels nice to have that recognized. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, you guys. I hope you stay tuned for the next episode. We have some big stuff coming up, and I will see you next time.